afternoon, and welcome to the Coal Scene. Our guest today is Earl Ray Tallman, current President of the West Virginia Senate and our current Lieutenant Governor. Mr. President, it's a real pleasure to have you on the program here this afternoon.
I'm glad to be here with you, Chris.
As I look over your resume, I'm just so impressed with both your educational background and your distinguished service to the state of West Virginia, and how you have very quietly built a strong reputation as one of the state's government leaders. First as a member of the West Virginia House of Delegates, a senator. Today you're the longest serving Senate president in our state's history, and you're also our first lieutenant governor. Recognizing it may very well take the entire half hour, could you just take a few moments and perhaps reflect over some of the years and some of those capacities?
Sure. I think the whole legislative branch has changed. I started some 36 years ago in the House of Delegates. It was basically a 2-month job. Interim committees were something that was almost non-existent. There would be maybe the Joint Committee on Government Finance and Interstate Cooperation would meet, and then no one else came back to Charleston unless there was a special session, which was rare, or those few each month for the limited interim committee meetings. But since that time, I think the legislative branch is much more visible than it was before. I think people expect more of their legislators than they did before. Obviously, our interim schedules have grown tremendously because of the number of issues that we have to deal with on the 3 days we're in town each month. But I think just generally the people are more aware of what legislators do. There are constantly meetings in your district or around the state that you need to attend and to try to help people out. So the whole role of the legislature has changed considerably in the last 3 decades.
I know myself, having been involved some of that time, I know there's been a transition from what was 25 years ago a professional politician, right, to where today the individual is a true professional legislator.
Right. Sure. I mean, many states consider their legislature to be full-time. In West Virginia, we're still considered part-time. However, if you look at the amount of days they're in session throughout the year, I think we're probably here as much or more than any of our surrounding states like Pennsylvania or Ohio. So it's even though most of us do have jobs back in our home districts and other sources of livelihood, it takes a great deal of time to be a member of the House or Senate.
Well, and also I know those of us that spend a lot of time around the Capitol, you personally receive a lot of the credit for the transformation of the legislative process, where some time back it often reflected a process without a set agenda, without the real earnest look at the state's finances, and all that's changed. I mean, you guys really do come in here with a game plan, with an agenda to try to help the state from all aspects of economic development, and you're also really stingy with the state's money.
I don't know if it's stingy. I think it's using the money wisely. I guess having the experience of being Senate Finance Chair for 8 years prior to becoming the President of the Senate, I come with it with probably a little bit different view than some of the other members may. During those years that I was Finance Chair, it was very tough economic times in West Virginia. It was very difficult to balance a budget. We knew that we had some major problems, especially with our retirement systems out there. And during the past few years, we've tried to take what surpluses we've had and pay down our debts, as opposed to starting new programs or expanding programs. And that's the way I kind of handle my own finances at home, that if we've got a mortgage or something, if you win the lottery, you don't, first thing you do, take a trip around the world. What you do is try to pay down some of your debts first. And I think that it's worked very well. It's been proven on Wall Street. Our bond rating has been upgraded a couple of times in the last year. So, I think that others, not only here in West Virginia, but around the country, and especially on Wall Street, are looking at the way that we're handling our finances in West Virginia, and I think most of the people approve of it. They don't want our government spending more than we're taking in and putting a burden on taxpayers. In addition to paying down debt, we've been able to reduce taxes on both businesses and individuals out there, especially as far as food tax goes. So I think we're moving. We got the ship headed in the right direction. We're not quite at port yet, but at least we're headed in the right direction.
Well, maybe at some point we can take some of those skills and transfer them to Washington, right, inside the Beltway, where you hear a lot of concern about the spending.
About Finance 101 in D.C.
Finance 101 in D.C. You're also a graduate of both Marshall and West Virginia University,
right?
Which is somewhat distinctive in and of itself. You're generally either with one school or with the other, not necessarily both. And again, from being around here, I know that you really have a sincere interest in seeing both schools, compete in all regards, and to advance both academically and from an educational standpoint,
right,
or athletic standpoint.
There are two great institutions. Both of them have their own goals and missions out there. I'm fortunate to be able, as you say, to be a graduate of both WVU and Marshall. But also, you got to admire those people who like one school or another. They're very loyal alumni. They contribute. They support those schools, and they're great institutions. And it gives people, whether you're wearing green or blue, a sense of identity out there. I think both those universities have advanced tremendously in the last several years. And if you look at the national prominence, especially in athletics, that the two schools have brought to West Virginia, when you travel around the country, people always know what's going on here with academics, especially football and basketball at WVU. And I think Marshall, with their new coaching staffs, will be back out on the front burner again too before too long. So, they're both schools that we should be proud of in this state.
I'd be remiss if I didn't plug the Coal Bowl, which we play a role in bringing the two schools together on the football field every year. And of course, we have that just around the corner here, 1st of September this year.
Absolutely, yeah. And a lot of people, for one reason or another, did not want to see that. But I think it's a great in-state rivalry that it brings people together, rooting for their own home team. But I just think it's an exciting time each year when the Coal Bowl's played, and we certainly do appreciate the Coal Association sponsoring that each year. It's, I think, a very positive thing for the state.
Well, we appreciate that, and we think it's fitting. We'd both be remiss if we didn't just compliment some of the other schools and just point out that we have an excellent college and university system, and we have a very an excellent community and technical college system in place also.
Absolutely. I'm proud of all of our schools, and it's taken, as far as you mentioned, the community and technical college schools, colleges in the state, it's taken probably 15 years to actually make that separation from the connection with the four-year institutions. Each one of them are now standalone and individually accredited community colleges around the state. They have different missions than four-year or baccalaureate colleges. I think that especially for businesses, the community colleges, when they see a need for training for a particular new program or retraining for existing programs out there, they can gear up, they can offer that training for the businesses, put people back in jobs very quickly, and then when the need's no longer there, eliminate the program. That's much tougher to do that in four-year institutions. We need both in this state. We need the four-year degree and master's and doctoral degrees, but we also need the community and technical colleges that can get in, do the training, make sure that people are trained to do the kind of work that the businesses in this state need.
It seems like there's been an increase, or at least the opportunity exists today more so than what it did previously, where a lot of individuals are going to the community or technical college initially, and then with the idea of later on in their academic experience moving then to the university. And there's also, I believe, a lot of partnering that's taken place between our four-year college and university system and the community college programs.
Absolutely. There's a lot of articulation agreements between the 2- and 4-year schools where you can go, and especially in tough economic times like we're in now, students are having enough problems, get enough money to go to college, but you can go to a community college, especially the first year or 2 years, get those basic core classes out of the way, and then transfer them to the 4-year institution to go on to major in, whatever kind of a field you want to go into. So I think it's worked out well. It's helped the students, it's helped the parents that's usually having to foot the bills, but I think they complement each other very well.
Let's talk a little coal.
Okay.
You obviously represent one of the largest coal producing regions in the state, and without question, the industry's has played a pretty important part in your life, both shaping some of your views and values. Could you just reflect on perhaps the latter aspect of that?
Obviously, coal has played a major role since the early part of the 1900s in the state of West Virginia. We obviously depend on coal severance tax tremendously each year as we balance the budget. The counties, especially those coal-producing counties, depend on that. That's millions of dollars going into their county governments, to their school systems, and it would be really tough if we did not have the coal. And obviously, if you look in southern West Virginia, where you have the terrain like we do, we're not blessed with the level ground where you can build plants or factories and really diversify the economy like other parts of the state. So coal has been a major player in this state for many years. I anticipate it to be a major player for many years to come. Obviously, there's some differences of opinion of a lot of people in West Virginia and our EPA and the federal government. But I think that coal will continue to be used for our power sources in West Virginia, and I think it will continue to be mined. Obviously, we may have to modify some of the procedures that we're using in mining now, but I still think it'll be around, and I feel very confident about that. I know a lot of people are nervous right now. A lot of people are even investing in new coal mines and so forth. But I think that we'll get through this, and we'll continue. Coal will continue to be a major player in West Virginia for at least the next 20, 25 years.
Well, that's being very optimistic, and we share some of that optimism in that we are blessed with a great reserve base here. We have some of the richer, more desirable coals, particularly as it relates to our metallurgical coal seams and the manufacturing of steel. I mean, it's the finest grade coal you'll find anywhere in the world, no question about that. We have an excellent workforce, extraordinarily qualified, with a great deal of experience today. We have excellent companies here in West Virginia that have made investment in our people and within our state. So there's a lot. So the industry's poised to take advantage of high growth opportunities in the future. But it does seem like today there's a lot of things that are a lot of serious threats and challenges facing the industry. A lot by way of global climate change and cap and trade legislation, a lot of things that could be detrimental to the state. But as you say, depending on what transpires here in the future, West Virginia coal should play an increasingly important role to our nation's energy mix going forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, and one of the other things I don't think we've invested in, especially at the federal level enough, is the coal liquefaction and so forth. Obviously, that technology's been around since World War II or maybe before, but yet, as long as the oil prices have remained low, nobody talks about trying to do any further development. A little bit of talk, but not a lot. But I think that there's a lot we can do with the coal we have to burn it cleaner in West Virginia. And the other thing, people want talk about wanting coal mines closed down or stop the mining process. Well, I mean, we're still getting 51% of our electricity in this country from coal, and there's not enough alternative sources of energy out there right now to stop the production of coal. So, I think that we may be able to mine it better, use it more cleanly, and I still see a future for coal. I'm very positive about that. I think most people in West Virginia are very positive. They're nervous. We're hitting a few bumps in the road right now, but I think we'll get through them.
Well, that's good, and I agree with that. Given some of the challenges that the industry faces today, the issue isn't necessarily whether the nation will continue to use coal, or whether we as a state will continue to use coal. The real question today is, where will the coal come from?
Whose coal will we burn?
Whose coal will we burn? You know, Western coal continues to come further and further east. The president's home state of Illinois is expanding its production. A lot of people are surprised at that, but they have projections of increasing their production considerably, and it's almost unacceptable. But we're bringing in a lot of foreign coal into this country today, not into West Virginia, but we're bringing several million tons of coal into the United States from places like Colombia, Indonesia, and the irony is that, you know, they have no safety standards, no environmental standards, but yet that coal is freely coming into the country.
And it's sad that that is happening, because we do have such a huge reserve in this country that we're not having to, but are importing coal when we have such an abundant supply, especially here in Appalachia.
Going back through your legislative experience, you mentioned that at one point you were, for a good while, chair of the Finance Committee, and had to rely on the coal severance, and were responsible for putting the state's budget together, basically. I know you also chaired the Senate Mining Industry. Energy Industry and Mining Committee for a period of time, and if I'm not mistaken, it was during your leadership there when the State Board of Coal Mine Health and Safety was created. You know, to have that constant review of our mine safety standards.
Right. That was one of those committees that used to be a very tough committee to serve on, and on a daily basis, it will be who brought the most people, whether usually it would be the UMW or labor or the coal operators, and you know, you got friends on both sides, and it was very difficult to have just hundreds of people every time the committee would meet, and it was over issues that we on the committee had very little expertise in, especially coal mine health and safety, or the technical review committee when we'd have issues like using diesels in underground mine and so forth. I was just a couple of those things that pops in the back of my head, but that was a time I said, this is no way to run a committee. I mean, we're sitting here making decisions on people's lives, their working conditions, on their profits, with their pay and everything else, and there's got to be a better way to do it. And as you said, that's when we created the technical review committee, as well as the health and safety boards, and it's representative from both sides. I think with a couple of lay people on there, they can spend the time throughout the year. They can negotiate back and forth and agree on what's best for the coal miner in West Virginia. And I think for the last 15 years or so, it's worked great in the state of West Virginia, as compared to who just showed up with the most people each day, and that's no way to make good legislation.
Well, having been close to those entities on the administrative level, you're absolutely correct. They have been very productive, especially here in the last decade or so. In fact, there's been a number of other states that have modeled administrative processes after our State Board of Coal Mine Health and Safety. And there's also a Board of Miner Training Education Certification, which sets all the training standards and criteria. And again, both of those have been very productive, very positive. And in fact, at the current time, they're also looking at a federal entity very similar to the State Board of Coal Mine Health and Safety.
And, I think that's just one more time, West Virginia, we get so used to hearing ourselves called 49th or 50th or the worst or whatever. I think we have done a lot of positive things in this state. If you look around, even in education, what we've been able to do, we were the first in the country to have computers in every classroom, when all the other states were coming to West Virginia to see how we did it. If you recall, especially after Sago and Aracoma, the safety legislation that was passed very swiftly through the legislature was basically the model for what Congress adopted, the bill that we drafted here in West Virginia. So there are many things that we do that are innovative here. Our school building authority program, where we put several $1 billion into new and improved schools in West Virginia. Many states have modeled that, taken our model and used them into their states. So, you know, we do occasionally come up with a good idea here in West Virginia, and obviously the safety and the technical review boards are are just an example of two of those.
Well, and even with surface mining and mountaintop mining, there's been a number of legislative initiatives, and I know you joined with the governor here a couple of years ago to try to take advantage of the mining activity to create a post-mine land development or sustain some economic development following mining.
And that's one of those things that I've advocated for many years, especially coming from southern West Virginia, you know, where you can go out on a four-wheeler or you know, and go for hours, you know, on sloping or pretty much level ground, but yet it's just sitting there. It's not being there's not been the kind of planning that we need. As late as what, 2 weeks ago, we had another round of flooding in southern West Virginia. The reason people get flooded, all the flat land is around the creeks and the rivers. You know, if we had a good planned, laid out community at an affordable price where these people could get up out of the floodplain, you know, we wouldn't have to worry about all that kind of grief and hardship it causes people. But you know, there's thousands of acres there that could be used for production, either for housing, for industry. We could diversify our economy in southern West Virginia, but so far we've not been able to do that. That's for various reasons. Obviously, a lot of it's especially federal regulations on reclamation, where you have to go back to the approximate original contour and so forth. But I think that you know, we have tried very hard to say that, you know, before you do mountaintop removal in this state, let's have a post-mine land use out there. And I think that's just absolutely essential, especially for southern West Virginia.
Well, one of the key aspects of that legislation and program that I personally observe is the inclusion of the local county governments into the process, the county commissions, the planning agencies.
Local EDAs. Right.
Yeah, and so, I mean, it just makes sense to get everybody together and try to figure out some vision for once the coal's mined. And it just stands to reason that while the mining company's there with all of its equipment and it's putting in roads to accommodate, you know, moving coal around and rock and dirt, it only makes sense to have that vision so that the you know, some of the infrastructure to accommodate that post-mine land use can be accomplished while you're there mining the coal.
Absolutely. I mean, as you say, you got the best roads that better than the state could build because of the heavy equipment that's on there during the mining process. You got three-phase power. You have water. You know, usually some sort of a sewer system, you know, for the employees. But yeah, I mean, that's infrastructure that most people don't realize has to be removed when the mining process is over. I mean, that's millions of dollars that's been spent that's just taken away. And I think that you know, once that expenditure's made, once the reclamation process starts, it could be, you know, laid down in a planned way and have some valuable land throughout the state of West Virginia.
You know, looking back, I know that there was a time, it hasn't been that long ago, that once the coal was removed, the federal agency or some jurisdiction would come in and make you take the roads out. Okay. They would make you take the power that was laid to power the operation, make you take all the power out, and they would also make you basically level all the buildings and facilities. There'd be nothing there. So it just seems like it's a win-win, and I know in places like Logan County, Mingo County, I know there's airports being constructed today. There's shopping centers. There's additional school sites being identified on some of these properties.
State parks.
State parks. I understand there's an Ray Tomlin Conference Center in the south of here, so that seems to be working well.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of use. We got regional jails there. We, like you said, with Mingo County, they're building new schools. Another project in Mingo County, as I understand, they're building a section of I-73-74 as part of the reclamation, which the state does not have the money to build right now, but it'll be just gifted to the state. So, you know, those are all positive things to make people have a better way of life, especially in southern West Virginia.
What do you see, just switching gears a little bit, what do you see coming up that would be characterized as major legislative issues, you know, on the horizon, things that you would guess that or predict would be might very well be before the legislature when it convenes in January?
Well, obviously we're looking at a special session in July. We've had select education committees meeting from the House and Senate, along with the parties of interest in dealing with education. They have just about completed their work. In middle to late July, we'll have a special session dealing with trying to transform our education system. I think there's most people probably believe that we are not educating our students as well as they should to be competitive in a not only a statewide but a global market out there. And that's what they've been attempting to do, was change some of the current laws or make recommendations to change some of the current laws so we could have a better education system in the state. Obviously, I mentioned earlier is with the economic conditions, there's still a lot of uncertainty out there, and our budget predictors are saying that we're going to have next year's going to be an extremely tough year for us, and so we have been more fortunate than most states as far as not having to raise taxes, lay off employees, and cut programs. We've been able to sustain everything that we have. But I think it's probably the economic issues will be some of the big things. I think we'll be dealing with coal mine, land use. We'll be reacting to what the EPA and Congress may enact up there. I think another thing is with the gaming around with our surrounding states, because several states is already competing with us now, and whether you like gaming or not, it was here, and whether or not you like it, that's we fund a lot of programs out of those revenues. But as Maryland, Ohio, Pennsylvania gets their casinos online, then it's going to. I think our income from that source of funds is going to start to go down. So those are some of the things. Obviously, cap and trade is a big issue that that I guess Congress is trying to act on before November. So we got a lot of those outside forces out there that we're having to deal with. It's not something we've created in West Virginia, but something we will have to react to.
Well, I got to say, we have viewed the West Virginia legislature as being very coal-friendly over the past decade or so, and particularly the West Virginia Senate. You guys have not hesitated to get involved and to voice the sentiment, if you will, or will of the legislature to try to improve safety, environmental quality, and to keep the industry healthy, and we certainly appreciate that. We're almost out of time, but there's a lot of speculation that there's maybe a higher calling, or there's aspirations for perhaps a higher office at some point in time in the future. Do you care to talk about that at all, or just?
Obviously, I've had a lot of encouragement from around the state to look at, as you may call it, a higher office. It depends on which branch of government you're sitting